Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Landon and Chad show, where we talk about infrastructure problems and find some solutions, or at least just discuss the problems so we can hopefully share some guidance on what's going on in infrastructure and what are the problems, and just talking about our opinions and how we look at things in the infrastructure world from two different perspectives. I've been in the industry for over 20 some years. Landon is 18 and just getting into the industry. And, you know, the gap between infrastructure investment and the gap between our generations is pretty significant. And one thing we do on this show is try and give two different perspectives of how we look at things, right, and then different experiences. So, Landon, when someone says America's infrastructure is crumbling, and for example, the American Society of Civil Engineers puts out a report card and gives the American infrastructure a grade of D plus in 2021, what do you think about that?
Well, I think that's not very good for my generation for the future. We're going to fix all that. So that kind of sucks. Thanks, Chad, for your generation not really helping out with that, like leaving us with that. But that's what I think, really. But it's an issue
That's a
for sure. So,
Dude, that's a good point, man. I got chills when you said that, man. That just hit me like reality is no joke there. Like, man, we are leaving our infrastructure a mess for the future generation. And you look at the debt our country has; it's significant, right? And we haven't invested in infrastructure because we've been trying to manage the world and the world problems that are occurring. And so America is in significant debt there, and we haven't reinvested any money into our own infrastructure. Oof, man, you just hit
yeah,
me with that, and I was not expecting that at all.
no.
Dang. Okay, so we're messing up, and you're coming up as an 18-year-old into the industry, into infrastructure. Where I know you don't have as much of like in the field, like listening to all the problems and stuff that are happening, but one of the things that I've learned is there's a lot of money in local governments, but it's not managed the way it should be managed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just from my personal opinion, when you have influence and relationships and you have money involved, it becomes very um how do you say it, like it can be very mismanaged that way.
Yeah.
So those type of things. So in your thought, like if you know that there's a mismanagement issue, right, there's an infrastructure procurement issue, there's a lack of resources, which is another conversation. We could have tons of conversations about these things, but what do you think when I tell you there's a lack of resources, there's an infrastructure problem, procurement problem because it's not streamlined, and there's a influence and a relationship process that's built that could be an issue too? What do you think about that?
I think it all again just comes down to education. People aren't educated on certain types of things. So like we talk about low bid and stuff all the time too in procurement, and that's an issue where people are getting the lowest priced goods or services, whatever it is. They're buying it and then it's not lasting long enough. Like it lasts 5 years and then once again just fixing the same issue. Then they learn from their mistake, maybe finally. So
Right.
educating people on the right things in infrastructure, I would say. And I know I'm young and not all the way in this industry or whatever, but
Right.
I think it all comes down to education. If we're not getting the right infrastructure built, well, we just have to rebuild it again. It's going to cause issues with budgets and time, of course, because we're rebuilding things that we built like a long time ago with our budget, and it took a lot of our budget, and then we're having to go back to it again, and we're not going anywhere with our infrastructure. Like
Mm.
you could take like a certain municipality and they have this issue with like their sewers. They build this whole sewer line, whatever, and then next thing 2 years later it collapses. They just wasted their whole budget on it
Ooh.
again. And
Yeah.
then now you're not getting other public goods, like say like a park or something. You can't put any budget on there. So like it's an issue for sure. So I think education really boils down to that, making sure you're getting the right service.
Yeah, because look, you can. When I talk to public works directors, government officials, and we have meetings, there's not a lot of resources out there. You can't just Google some of this stuff because there was such a niche place in the water and sewer, specifically in that space. And traditionally, we've been habitually doing the same things we've been doing for decades, right? And that's where we're seeing like technology is not being adopted fast enough because of influences and potentially some of the relationships that are there because of fear of change, right? If you're changing the way you're doing things, then there's a fear of revenue loss, right? There's a fear of losing a client, for example. There's a fear of your way of business that you've been able to manage and control for a long time. But now technology is disrupting that space, but you're not going to educate your potential customer. And I'm using this as an example of like, there's 80% of America's engineering firms employ 20 people or less, right? So that tells me, and I think there's like 132,000. I'll look up the numbers, but so there's 132,000 civil engineering firms in the country. A lot of them are under 20 employees. So these small towns of like 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 people, potentially even up to 100,000 in population, are using local resources, engineering firms and things like that to get educated, right? So if that's happening and there's a issue with like bringing a technology that, let's say I'm an engineering firm and you're my customer, I'm gonna be like, Landon, you don't want to change the way you're inspecting sewer pipes because we have $1 million contract, right? You and I have $1 million contract. It's been working. It's been great. But now technology is coming in and they're saying, well, you don't need to camera as much pipes as you used to, right? You can reduce it in half the amount of TVing you're doing. So now if I'm an engineering firm, I'm freaking out. I'm like, wait, you're going to cut my contract in half? Just think about that. And if that's happening all across the country, no wonder we're not able to switch to a more progressive and technology.
There's no progress in it. I mean, it's all about money. Money talks, and don't want to change what you're doing when everybody's making a profit. But it needs to change because if we don't, I mean, our communities are just going to stay the same, not grow. And if they do grow, we're not going to be ready for it. I mean,
and then your generation is going to deal with it.
I don't know.
Later
because so many issues. But
wow. And the thing is, I posted a poll this morning, and one thing I did is I tested the Google Bard AI to see what it does with information on, because it's supposed to be so really good at real-time information. So I ran through and it's kind of all over the place, but the American Society of Civil Engineering did that infrastructure report card, and it's trillions of dollars. I mean, they're saying that in the next 10, 20 years, the gap's just widening tremendously because our 2 million miles of water pipes, for example, are just slowly degrading and faster every day, right? Our sewer systems are failing because we're just not able to have enough resources to fix them and do it effectively, right? And then we have like inferior procurement, right? Low bid processes where we're putting in inferior products or solutions, and it's just going to compound. Like you said earlier, it's like it might last a year or two, but you're being told it's going to last 50 years.
It's bad. So.
And I don't want to talk about bad stuff, but I think we need to talk about these things, right? It's the only way, and to get your perspective on like what you see as an 18-year-old, coming into the industry and what that's going to look like. But so what if we did fix everything? Or let's say the federal, back in the 80s, they were helping utilities fund the water systems, fix water systems. That's all over now. They pulled the money, federal governments pulled the money. And I wonder why. Like, was it because of waste? Like, was it the money getting wasted and it wasn't being utilized correctly by local governments and things like that? Like, where did that money go and why did it stop? I know Dennis Truex from American Society of Civil Engineers, I'm going to have him on a live event next week, but he's very smart. This guy knows his stuff about everything historically in the future, like engineering. He's good with all these numbers. So maybe he could probably answer that better. But what happened to the money? Why does it stop now? And then, where's the money at in America? Why aren't we reinvesting in America is a huge concern. I would imagine for your generation, it's got to be. If you know what you know as an 18-year-old in the industry, that's got to be scary, I would assume. But my point is like, It's trillions of dollars. And let's say the federal government starts dropping in billions of dollars. They said, okay, well, we're so behind. Landon, I'm going to give you $50 billion to fix your water, sewer, roads, and all that stuff, right? I'm going to give you $50 billion. Now, you have established, connections with, your contractors, suppliers, subcontractors, things like that. You're given $50 million to go to it. You're using a paper-based procurement system, okay? You don't have resources to actually go and check the manufacturers, the suppliers, the contractors. You don't have the resources to go do all that, right? But you're handed $50 million to go fix roads, sewers, and bridges and whatever else. But you have no resources to manage it. What's going to happen to that money? What do you think?
Go to waste. I mean, time is money, and when you're wasting more time, more money is wasted. Things aren't getting done, so it's just going to be a big issue. It's going to be a waste of $50 billion, like you said. I mean, maybe some things will get fixed, but not everything that's needed will get fixed. It'll just be non-efficient, and efficiency is what we have to move to in everything. And what we've always talked about, building relationships and building relationships quickly. If I'm given $50 billion to fix the roads and infrastructure or whatever, and I don't have a relationship with this one person, I'm going to have to build that relationship with the person, a contractor, and it's going to take forever. I mean, you know how it is. You were in sales for a long time, driving 300 miles away to go meet someone.
Yeah.
They don't agree with you on something or something, then it's just a big mishap. I mean, that's what it is. It's going to take a long time to do. So if you don't do everything efficiently, whether it's building relationships, workflow management, stuff like that, it's never going to happen.
And if you can't be transparent, that's the other thing that everyone's screaming about. Well, the pay rates, for a taxpayer, to increase their costs to pay for the water, the sewer systems, and to basically double it or triple it to be comparison to your phone bill for Verizon, for example, or whoever, right? You have as your phone carrier. We should be having those kind of charges to taxpayers, but we're not being transparent with the information, right? We're not saying, well, this pipe is broken and that sewer is broken or that road needs construction. Like maybe we're being transparent, but are we really being transparent? Are we actually getting to the constituents and telling them like, hey, we need $1 billion from our taxpayers because we need to fix the water system because here's what's going to happen if it doesn't, right? Mm-hmm. I think the information's there, but I think we're having a terrible time sending, describing the message or visually giving the message,
communicating it. So it's really what it is. And then people just don't understand like how bad this situation could be if you don't really make it more efficient and kind of innovate and be different from what we're doing now that's not working.
I think the technology is there potentially. I think it's a little, where you can't really trust it yet because there's so many people coming at you with so many different angles of like, we have the best software, we have the best sensors, we have the best this, best that. It's very hard for a public works director, for example, to like filter all that stuff out. I mean, it's tough because if you make a bad decision, and let's say you do a $250,000 or $250 million water treatment and building, and let's say more of these regulations come out for PFAS, for example, like remove it to 4 trillion parts per trillion, right? And then you didn't include that in your building, and then you have to upgrade it to filter through all that. That it's just a compounding effect for a director. It's got to be so stressful. Just talking to them, it's very tough. But what if you use technology? Like there was a place or a system that you can actually go to, manage and give resources and information, and you can track your assets and things like that. Would that make more sense to, like, if you moved into a public works director position in the next 10 years, Landon, you're like, I want to do, and you have at your fingertips a place where all this can be managed in one place. That would be the goal. I would hope that we get to that smart city or smart utility management system. It's all scattered everywhere now. The whole system's scattered in this space right now because everyone's trying to get into it. But if you had that at your fingertips, what would you think of it? Like,
right now I've kind of been with the work I've been doing here. I've kind of created my own system where I can just do it all from like one spot. like one software piece, and things have been done so much more efficiently. So like imagine if your public works, you just click a button like this sewer needs looked at, go to it on your software or whatever. This contractor inspects sewer, hire. Boom. They go out there. You have all what they need to inspect, all the information, one thing. They go out there, done. Even like billing to bill them too. You can just do it right there. Like that'd be crazy. It'd be so much easier. Wouldn't be on the phone with someone and you're wasting probably hours on end just talking about it because people hear something and then they forget about it and then it's gone. And then you're like, oh, I got to re-explain it to them. I mean, that's probably a big issue, I would assume, with public works directors and what they have to go through. So if you have one software where they're all on and they can just see all the information right there and it stays right there and all the specs are completely laid out or you won't have to question it, that'd be pretty insane, I think. So that'd be a big innovator.
Yeah, it's. I think we're getting there slowly but surely. But I don't. There's a lot of politics involved, and you and I are just kind of little guys in a big bowl, right? But if you were able to maybe as a local governor, say you were running a city or I was running a city and I had all the facts about my assets. Like I knew where all my fire hydrants were maintained. I knew all the water pipes, where my leaks are. I know all the condition assessment of all my infrastructure, right? And I went to the federal government and said, hey, federal government, here visually, I can show you and present to you everything about my infrastructure and how bad it is. And here's the critical places, issues that I have and show you how bad it is. Because if we don't fix these things, the effects on the economy within a local community are tremendous, right? You stop a major highway or you stop a major road, for example, you just crush your economy within those communities, right? If there's any kind of disasters because of infrastructure, that stuns a community. But if you went to the federal government with this system that you just kind of like had your hands on, displayed everything and said, hey, we need $20 billion, going back to that again, to obtain and maintain our infrastructure, I think the federal government might be like, hey, you did your due diligence. You did a great job. You got your stuff together. How about we give you the $20 billion to fix your infrastructure? I think that you'd get more acceptance to that than just trying to lobby for money, money for dollars, because everyone lobbies for dollars, and here's the other thing is we talk about waste. If you give money to the wrong lobby groups and wrong nonprofits and things like that are supposed to be contributing and helping out these communities, and they're not because they're influenced by outside interest, just imagine that what's happening out there.
Yeah,
because you're going to give that exactly. You can't. Humans are humans, man. We just do what we do, but sometimes it's not the right thing. And it's for your own interest and greed and things like that. And I think that's where the federal government might be really hesitant because you have if you stick to like utilities, you're like, you don't have a checks and balances, QA/QC, right? On like where the money's going and what you're doing with it, or you have someone saying you have to rehabilitate or fix and replace all your infrastructure. Do you really need to replace and fix all your infrastructure, or are you just trying to get all my money? That's the tough part, right? Is trying to make that decision as a director of what that's going to look like. So this is a very interesting world we're in, and that I was just curious, and you hit me with that right off the bat. You guys, I'm still stunned by that when you said that at the beginning. What else do you think, like your generation, like all your friends and stuff like that, they don't even think about infrastructure, do they?
No one does. I mean, got to really get into the industry to really see the big issues of it, and which talking to people and stuff that are actually in the industry, I really can see the big issues with it.
What if they didn't have water at their tap anymore?
Then people would notice. Yeah. Just like, I mean, there's been already communities that have had that happen and stuff. So, and guess what? It's on major news networks all the time. So
it is. Droughts are a big thing. Water conservation is a huge thing. And if people are out of sight, out of mind, it's always out of sight, out of mind. No one thinks about it. We flush the toilet.
We take it for granted. But then when it's gone, it's a bad deal. The whole world ends when it's gone for 30 minutes.
Yeah. We doing owl houses. Yeah. Dig a
Yeah.
hole in the backyard and start going there. And then we got an environmental issue,
Yeah.
that
No
it
one
could
would.
just compound into
I
a
don't think
whole.
anyone would do that now.
I mean, we could, it's like, God, those are serious things you got to think about, right? If you
Mhm.
don't, I get it. The funds are,
Yeah.
they almost seem like they're just
Yeah.
coming out of nowhere, the funds for these projects. But you're right, man.
Yeah.
It's
I
your
mean,
generation's gonna have to deal with it.
yeah. One thing that kind of sheds light at the end of the tunnel is like, have you heard about the I-95 bridge collapse or whatever?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
They
yeah.
rebuilt. I think they opened that up already again. So,
I didn't follow up
but
on it. I
yeah,
loved, what they did that was awesome there. They were transparent.
I know.
They did the right thing. They're like, look, we'll put cameras up and we'll live stream this bad boy for 24/7. And I watched it on different social media channels they were carrying it on. But they're showing that like we're working, we're doing what we got to do because they don't want to have the PR issues of people constantly on social media bashing them for not doing it fast enough. They were like, "What? Let's get ahead of this thing, and that's put the videos up there and just show people that it's being done, so that we can." And that's where we need to get to. Like, be transparent within your communities, what your problems are, where send instead of my water bill, for example. I'm just throwing this out there. I get a water bill, pay $115, right? Okay, great. What are you doing with it? How bad's the infrastructure? Show me the infrastructure. Show me how many assets, pipes we need to be fixed. Show me how bad they are. Send me a picture of like how much things are going to collapse. Describe to me in the street where it's located, right? Be that transparent because I want to know if you come to me and say I need $400 a month now to fix the water system. Everyone's got to pay it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, where's the money going?
Yeah. And like,
I get it. I'll pay
to
it.
build off that, like I see all the time on like these Facebook community pages, they're saying like, why did my water bill go up $200 this month? And like everybody's like questioning, like, imagine if the city would just say why. Like, you wouldn't get those arguments. I mean, it kind of.
That's why you're going to have people at council meetings flipping out because it's out of sight, out of mind, and you're trying to hit them with an rate increase of like 50%, 100, doubling, whatever it's going to look like. But you got to be more transparent than just, hey, just take it and like it, because I don't think that's going to be effective anymore. It's just not. The amount of money we're going to need to fix infrastructure is pretty tremendous. And here's the other thing: is data is being controlled. We talked about those engineering firms. I'm not saying they're all like in doing this, but if you're allowing your asset information to be controlled by certain entities in the future, you're not going to have the ability to share that information, or could it be manipulated? You're talking about, I'm getting off topic right now, but think about these things, right? The city should own all their data and all their asset data and all their information. It should not be controlled or managed by any other agency outside of that local government. But man, we spread that stuff out everywhere. Where it's like everybody has it. We know all your codes for your sewer pipes, your manholes, all those things. And it's spread throughout. Engineering firms, contractors everyone has it.
Yeah, like I don't know if this relates, but like a big thing is like hackers like hacking into like gas lines and stuff and stopping it, like because their data is everywhere. I mean, it's gonna get broken into at some point. So yeah, that's another thing.
But I think this is a great conversation. We're at the end of it. It goes. This one went fast, Landon. I didn't know. I'm still shocked by what you just told me at the beginning of this. So, man, that just hit home. Like, we are responsible for the next generation. My kids too. They're going to have to deal with all of this too if we don't start investing the funds. But how much money can we invest if we don't have a great management system in place to manage the project management, the work orders, the procurement processes, like who's getting the money, how's it being handled, did they do a great job, did they even if it's low bid, I get it, but did anybody manage that low bid? Did they follow up on that contract to make sure they were doing the right job or make sure they installed it correctly? Those are things people need to start talking about. So anyway, Landon, you have a great weekend, my man, and enjoy lunch with your grandma, right?
Yeah, you're gonna do that here in a second.
I love it. That's awesome. And that's another important thing. Spend time with your family and start to, learn from them, because it's super important to do those things. So you have a good weekend, my man.
Yeah, you too. That was a good conversation. Hopefully everybody liked it as well. Leave your comments as well below. And
yeah, Thanks everybody for anybody that's watching. I don't even know who watches it and stuff. I just think it's great content for us to share, and whoever listens or watches, that'd be great. Well, thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Talk to you later on.
Yeah, see ya.